for those of you that have been following me on socials, I'm working from Starbucks because I got evacuated yesterday, and but it looks like we'll be able to go home today. So pretty excited about that, and looking forward to being home and settling back into our everyday routines. So today we have Greg Sayegh, and if you're looking at the name on the webinar, you'll say, how did they get Sayegh from that? And so you'll have to explain that for us, Greg.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I tell you, I'm 50% Arabic. My dad was from Syria, so I have that name, and I've been living with that, bastardized name ever since I was a little kid in school. So you can imagine every teacher I had couldn't pronounce it. But
did you walk
anyway, that's the story.
Can we get your t-shirt that sounds like Sayegh, like spelled the way it sounds?
Exactly. Sayegh, you got an R in there? How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, Greg's a friend of mine, and Greg and I actually haven't known each other for way too long, but every time we get together, it's like we've known each other forever. And we spend some good times together and chat at a lot of our conferences. And he is the founder or CEO of InGenious, and some of you may know what InGenious is, and some of you may not, and you may be using some of their platform without knowing that you're using some of their platform, because your company may be running some data warehousing in the background. And so you asked what was important about data 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and today. And what we wanted to talk about today is how do we weaponize that going forward, Greg? I want to make sure that we find a way. Oh yeah, I'm freezing up a little bit. See that? I want to make sure that we find a way to maximize the opportunities that we have ahead of us. Because if there's less transactions, we need to be much more efficient. We need to make sure that we're using targeted strategies rather than shotgun strategies. And so I think what you have helps us with that as recruiters, as branch managers, as loan officers, looking for real estate relationships. Anytime you want to have intelligent conversation, if you have good data, it gives you better conversations. So tell us a little bit about your product.
Absolutely. I started this company with a couple of partners 6 years ago after spending 30 years in home mortgage as a sales leader working for some pretty large companies, and definitely saw a huge gap from a data perspective, and that's what drove us to start the company. Our mission was to equip loan officers, recruiting managers, the entire mortgage operation, even real estate companies. We've got title companies, fintech companies, and so on our platform. But our primary focus is around loan officer recruiting and growing productivity. After 30 years in the industry, there's two ways to grow. One, you hire the right loan officers that are going to fit within your company, and two, get more out of the loan officers that you have. So we have a very robust system. We use 21 different data providers and aggregate them into one platform. And the secret sauce is what happens behind the scenes. We've got 3 patents pending on how we're analyzing and blending the data. So it's a pretty interesting platform and interesting ride for me, for sure.
I made a little move closer to the Starbucks Wi-Fi portal. Let's see if that works any better. From what I see, it still looks like I'm freezing up a little bit. I am going to make one more move. Let's see what happens, right? You talk for a minute while I make one more move.
I would love it. And nice to talk to everybody out there. Again, the company is InGenious. InGenious-data.com is how you find us. One of the things that I find interesting when you look at data, and you can't read any financial publication or anything out there that looks at data that doesn't say data is the new oil. Data is everything going forward. And I think sometimes we forget that what we do in our everyday life is data driven. An example, TripAdvisor and Yelp It provides data on what hotels, what restaurants you may want to go to. What contractors should I engage to build my bathroom? Um, Navigation systems to provide direction, which way to go, where's their traffic? That's all data driven. And even heck, who you want to date, right? Bumble and I'm sure there's a few Tinder users out there as well. So I find it interesting that many folks in the mortgage industry say, I don't use data. I already have my system. It works. Well, if you're not using it, you're going to need to use it in this growing mortgage economy. And also in a way to create opportunities where you've got a smaller market opportunity today. How do you find those nuggets out there that may help you sustain your volume through, through the cycles we're going through?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll give you a couple of case studies of how I think we can use data right now, Greg, that are very tactical for 2025. I truly believe that one way to do it, and let's just kind of go by the use case based on your role. So if you're a branch manager, I'll give you an example. I was working with a recruit that I've known him for 15 years. So, we don't recruit people, we don't make cold calls or anything like that. We only bring on people onto our team that are people we've known for a long time and we have a relationship. However, that doesn't mean that you should be egotistical enough to not know anything about them. And so before I went into our meeting, as talks got a little more serious, I decided to look at some data. And so I wanted to see what his product mix was like. I wanted to see what agents he had been working with. I wanted to see what title companies and escrow companies he regularly works with, and what lenders, because they broker a lot, what lenders they had been brokering loans to. And so instead of walking into the meeting by just saying, how was your year? I already had that data. I already knew exactly what I was walking into. And so I said, instead, the conversation was like, so I saw you did 36 million last year. That's pretty good in one of the worst markets in history. It's like, well, that's pretty close. I actually did 38. I'm like, okay, because the data is not perfect. That's something we got to address also. The data is not perfect, but it's close enough. It's close enough to have an intelligent conversation. And I said, yeah, it looks great. I looked back at 2023 and 2022 as well, and I noticed that you lost a couple of the agents out of the Remax office. What happened there? And he was absolutely stunned that I had that level of detail of his business. Because in the past, that used to be something that was completely in the dark. And so you say, maybe that's a value, maybe that's not a value, but at least I showed him I did my homework and I was prepared. And then I said, imagine if you had this data on every real estate agent that you ever wanted to work with, and you saw what loan officers they were working with, who they were sending their business to, who they were doing business to. In fact, what if you were to download their entire database of every transaction they've done, drop it into a CRM, and show them a campaign that you prepared for them to send to their past clients? Would that be powerful? And so that's one use case where you could have conversations, relevant conversations, powerful conversations by using data as the background for that. Do you see people doing that?
I do, but there's if you talk to the peers in the tech world, they talk about adoption of technology, and at best maybe it's 25%. I would argue that the more productive loan officers and managers are using data and using their tech stack much more actively. But I totally see that. I don't see the granularity to the extent you just laid out there. It's got to go from a cold call to a warm call, and you do that by knowing who you're talking to. You call on a real estate agent and you don't know, they haven't sold a house in 6 months. Are you going to spend your time and energy there, or are you going to spend your time and energy in those that are actually full-time active agents? And there's only 24 hours in a day. I don't think that's changing. So if you're not the most efficient possible with your energy, like you say, Gino, ROE, right? Return on energy, then you're going to fall behind. I do have one statistic that I want to point out. It's very interesting. And yes, I'm older than probably some of you guys in the audience. I've I'm a crusty old veteran, but I've been tracking this number since 1988, that 50% of the loan officers today close 92% of total volume. And that was up from, the studies 10 and 20 years ago where 50% closed 85%. And the numbers that we have just completed, and we're going to push them out to the industry, was that the bottom 50 closed on an average of 4.1 loans for the entire year. So if I'm looking at energy, where am I going to devote my energy? Am I going to try to get those loan officers from 4.1 to 6? That's good. But could I get my future stars, my middle performers from 8 to 10 loans, 12 loans, 20 loans a year up? I think that's better use of your time. So I made a statement on LinkedIn a few months ago that said, bottom 50%, don't hire them. And not that they're bad people, but you really got to dig in. Like you said, you really got to dig into the data and say, is there something I'm missing? Is there a motivational fit? Is there something that we can leverage to ensure the success of that individual? Not just trade lower producers back and forth.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. That's from a recruiting standpoint, but as you said, you can utilize the same tools and the same thing. 73%, and maybe you have a new numbers for 2024, but the last number that I saw was 73% of licensed real estate agents had not done one transaction all of last year.
Wow.
And so that's a scary number. That means that people just are renewing their license because of sport, not because they actually think they're going to do business. And mortgage is not all that different. We're starting to go down that same road. And so what I'd like to see us do is I'd like to see us figure out, can also make us, it's not everything. Like you said, it's just, it doesn't, you can't make all paper decisions. There might be reasons why maybe someone did 6 transactions, but they were all reverse. That would be great. 6 reverse transactions are great. That sounds fantastic. Maybe somebody did 6 transactions and that unfortunately one of their kids was sick or they were sick or
Exactly.
something happened in their life. So we can't make the decisions based on the data, but the data gives us information so that we can have intelligent conversation and make intelligent decisions as to how we're going to be able to move forward with these things. With the real estate agent in mind, what we've done with our team this year using data as well is last year we threw a lot of parties and we had hundreds of people at some of our events. We had a Mike Ferry event with over 250 people. We had a State of the Union event with over 200 people. We had multiple parties, over 150 to 200 people. And then we had a lunch and learns that we did every month where we had 50 to 80 people. The primary guests were real estate agents. So what did we do? We now gathered all the information over the last 12 months of all the people in our sphere that we have influence on. And Sonia's showing some pictures here of some of our events. There's Mike Ferry. And so now what we've done is we've taken that, we've got a virtual assistant looking through data to identify of all the people that we had influence on, who's already working with us, who's not working with us yet and doing significant amount of business, who used to work with us and stopped working with us, and who we want to target this year. So this year we moved our systems to by invite only instead of just having blast marketing. So what happens now, our marketing costs get smaller. Everybody that we invite to these events now feels special because we tell them they're for invite only, and they're targeted and they're the people that we actually want in our lives. And so when we talk about efficiency, that's what we've done. We've gone, it's a funnel. If you start thinking about, everybody talks about click funnels. Sales funnels have existed for all eternity. We just never called them that. But it's the most of the people at the top. And that's what we did last year with our shotgun approach. And now because we have data, we can now bring that funnel in tighter, and we can now go shotgun with these relationships, and we'll be much more effective, much more efficient, and have a better conversion rate.
That's beautiful. The one thing that I was impressed with you, and I think I said on LinkedIn, you're a pretty cool cat, that you and I just just click, but that, you're looking at the business holistically. You're looking at it from not just monoline, do this, but you're looking at opportunities and uncovering stones. And one thing that I know, and I'll give you an example of what the data tells us in looking at opportunity, is the feedback is that if you have a builder that has their own in-house lender or a captive, there's no opportunity to do business there. Our data will tell you that 30% of new home buyers are not going through their captive lender. But because it seems like an impediment, I can't waste my time on calling on that builder. 30% of those deals are going to an outside lender. Real estate agents, same thing. I've managed large JVs over the years, and 30%, there's that number again, 30% of real estate agents are referring loans into their captive. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think without drilling deeper, as you say, Gino, you really can't uncover those nuggets or those opportunities. You're creating talking points, which is always important to create confidence when you're making a sales call.
And I think that that's one of the things too, is we need to, where we are today, there's a fork, there's a divide happening right now. And I don't want to say that it's work ethic driven, because it's not all work ethic driven. I think it's very strategic, because I could make 100 phone calls and get nothing, or I could make 10 phone calls and get a lot. So I think it's super important that we drill down so that we don't waste our time, because I don't want to hear from our LOs that they're busy, and they don't have time. And I don't want to be insulting by saying busy doing what, because whatever you're doing is not working. Right. And so we have to measure activity versus results. And when you measure activity versus results, in order to do that, we have to look at all the data points. And so I think that in the world that we're in, if you look at an Amazon or a Home Depot or a Costco, you think they don't have data? They know everything. They know how much time you spend in the store. They know how much stuff is stolen. They know how much stuff breaks on the shelf, how much rots, how much got lost in delivery. And they make executive decisions based on data every single day. So as we are on our quest to become more Amazon-like, because in order to make sure that we're never replaced in our field, we need to make sure that we deliver an Amazon-like customer service experience to our consumer someday. Maybe that's not today, maybe we're not there yet, but we need to start moving in that direction. And so if we're starting to move in that direction, we start utilize data, possibly also to save money. And I'll give you this is a silly example, but if we had 80 realtors in our room last year, we're there, and this year with our targeted approach, we only invited 30, but those 30 are actually going to give us business. Well, we bought 50 less sandwiches. I mean, it seems silly, but that's 50 less sandwiches 12 times a year. And that leads to one of the things that I always say, because I'm in charge of margins for our region. There is no one place to find 20 bips, but there might be 20 places to find 1 bip. And that might be a 1 bip solution for somebody that's in charge of margins and profitabilities. And so if we're being hyper focused on cost savings, data would be a very important tool as well. Do you see companies using data for cost savings purposes?
Absolutely. They look at it from in fact, I just was reading a LinkedIn post from an associate of mine on the East Coast talking about the impact on pricing, looking at the different volume levels of a loan officer. So they're saying that the higher producers in many ways have to subsidize pricing for the lower producers. Now, I think there's a lot of ambiguity in there to a certain extent, but I think he's right in that anytime you can save $1, it immediately impacts your bottom line. The goal today, pricing is much more important now than it ever has been, because in the minds of the consumer, that's a big darn deal. But anytime you can save $1, yeah, it impacts your bottom line, adds to your P&L, but also helps your pricing, which I think is critical when you've got the UWMs out there doing some crazy things from most of the time. But yes, for sure, we
I mean,
do.
look, I think as it relates to pricing, we now have a mutual responsibility as a team, as a unit, to be cost centric. There is no room for slop, right? What UWM and Rocket have done is they've driven down margins for a multitude of reasons. And I can go down the list of a couple of them just so you get an idea. But one of them is most of my staff is in California. I pay more than all of their staff is in Detroit. That's
Right.
just a fact. So just my cost basis on labor is 20% higher just from a relationship of proximity from where we are. And so you're dealing with that. So how do we offset that? Well, you can't offset all of it. So now you got to save it somewhere else. Maybe you got to save it by not printing 1,000 flyers that don't get delivered somewhere, right? You've got to find a different place if you can't save it in labor. And of course, you can do remote work and you can do other strategies. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but we all have a responsibility because the loan officer is starting to feel comp compression. And we've been feeling comp compression for a decade, but we're right now at that one more inflection point where we're seeing that comp compression is potentially going to take one more step in that direction for the loan officer. And that's why the move to brokering happened, is because people felt like they could defend comp a little bit better going to the wholesale market. And if you're only doing 1 to 2 loans a month, I agree with that strategy. There's nothing wrong with that. You can potentially get a little bit of a lift. But the problem that I see is if you are going to be scaling a business, it's very difficult to scale in wholesale. Very, very difficult. And we have plenty of friends in the wholesale business, PRMGs in the wholesale business. We know what their problems are. You're not going to be a top 10 mortgage lender in the nation or a top 50 mortgage lender in the nation in the wholesale market. It's just not a scalable business where you could have transparency to your team, delegation, automation, data. You just don't have those tools. The tools you have are to be able to run lean and mean and do a couple of loans a year. So I bring that up because last week I talked to a top 10 lender, through Momentum Builder and Sales Mastery. We get to talk to everybody in the industry. And we were able to talk to a top 10 lender in the nation in 2024, who's super relevant. And they said their net pay is approximately 40 basis points. That was impressive to hear. So you need to know that as volume increases, compensation should decrease on a basis point basis, for lack of a better term, on a basis point basis, because at some point, none of us go to Starbucks and pay in basis points. We pay in dollars. So you have to start dollarizing things. And so I think it's very important, also with the rise in loan limits and the rise in loan amounts, we have to take all that into consideration. So I don't want to look at comp compression for myself or for our team in basis points. I want to start looking at it in dollars. I think everybody should do that. Does your data solution help with things to dollarize things as well? Average loan amounts, things that I could look at, like put in a zip code and find agents that work in higher dollar amount areas, or I could target agents. So let's say I don't have a good jumbo product, for argument's sake, right? Because not all independent mortgage bankers do. Then can I avoid agents that do jumbo loans and find people that are in my sweet spot? Can I drill down to that granular level and find needles in a haystack, for that matter?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. You can segment real estate agents by production. So I want to talk to the top real estate agents. I'm not going to touch them, too difficult. They've got a team of 18 buyer's agents. So that middle level producer who's consistent, I can filter on that, filter on the product they offer, filter on the type of property, condo as an example. And if you have which PRMG does, but if you have a condo niche where you can maybe from a pricing perspective or project approval process, then target real estate agents that do condo, that specialize in condo.
You've got my wheels turning right now because uh, we have a product that it's just such a little sweet spot, okay? And we have a special product for non-owner and second homes. When Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came out with these non-owner and second homes LLPAs, we struck a deal with somebody to deliver a very specific tranche the way they want it, with this really sweet price, like 200 points better than the typical Fannie Mae solution. But it's a small window. it's 65 to 80 LTV, and it's got a little limit on the loan amounts too. It's this really super granular thing. So it would be very important for me to be able to say, I need to find agents that are doing non-owner business. And I don't care. We're 49 states. I don't care what state it's in, pretty much. So I need to find people that are doing non-owner business in any of the 49 states that we work with an average purchase price of X, so that then I can calculate the LTV that I need to be at and target those. I mean, so I think, again, as we get more efficient, the more we rely on these data points, the less we spin our wheels, the more tactical we become, the more efficient, more educated, and we become. And when you have intelligent conversation, better things happen.
Right. I love it. Yeah, we have a product that we rolled out recently called LoanView Connect that reflects every closed mortgage going back to January of 2019. And you can segment those transactions by property address, property type, closing date, um, the seller, buyer information. I'm sorry, obviously the buyer information, but who was the seller, who was the agent, what was the LTV, and it's a great tool for just what you're saying, is targeting um, prospective opportunities going down to the consumer level, not just the real estate agent level. So that's another opportunity, and that's a pretty uh, important product of ours.
You just
Um,
reminded me, another thing that we could search by is, a lot of us have CRA programs right now. We can use specific census tracts to target transactions. So I think it'd be really nice if I could give you a list of census tracts and say, give me all the agents that are doing business in this census tract. Is that a field that we can utilize to search?
Absolutely love it, and even in our standard realtor loan officer modules, we have that information. In this LoanView Connect module, we'll also indicate whether it's a low to moderate income
Mm-hmm.
census tract or a majority minority census tract. And the CFPB is one of our clients, and
Nice.
they leverage our data for enforcement and other reasons or other things. But to identify, or the term majority minority census tract, you didn't hear of it 5 years ago. Now that's kind of the preeminent expectation for a mortgage lender, regardless of bank, credit union, or IMB, that's where they want to focus. And our data has that information. But what you're saying, Gino, is I'd high five you, maybe I'd hug you. I'm not sure if I was next to you, but that is the kind of thing that I think you have to get into. You have to dig into right now to uncover stones out there. That CRA market, the fair lending market, is called underserved, which means you don't have as much competition. Going after an underserved market and solving that problem really sets you apart and adds, a creative volume. Love it.
Yeah, I think, they say the riches are in the niches, and when there's not abundance, then I think strategic is very important. And it's, you're not going to solve everything, but I think in this market, if you could pick up one or two deals a month that you wouldn't have picked up otherwise, then this is worth it. And again, you don't, if you're not a data nerd, you don't have to do this work yourself. You just have to give this tool to someone who is. Like I said, we've hired virtual assistants to do that kind of work. We just tell them what we're looking for. Then they could use a software platform like yours to dig in and find exactly what we need and spit it out to us. And we started using AI, sell spreadsheets into AI and having it produce reports. I started dropping AIs and saying, identify this, identify that, make me a list of these. One thing would be interesting too, and not to go down too far the rabbit hole, but what about skip tracing? Because we're trying to reach people, and Don gets mad at me, and you guys will laugh at this one, but I don't check my voicemail anymore. Right? So I'm about to change my voicemail to say, please don't leave a voicemail on this message. I don't check it. Or it may be delayed 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 months. Because I do check it once in a while. But the reason I don't check it is because 96% of everything that's there is a cold call sales call. Right? people that really want to get a hold of me either DM me or they text me or they email me, right? So how can we, with your software, find the data that we need so we can reach people where they are? Because sometimes we might need to send somebody an email, a text message, a Facebook, Instagram DM. We might need to reach a LinkedIn. We need to find them where they live and then target them where they live. So I think it's important that we have all those data points so then we can actually find someone and market to them where they live.
Right, love it. You know, our contact database, and we have a very extensive loan officer contact database. It's part of our recruiting module, and a robust realtor contact database for so we have the information, we have cell phone, email address, especially for realtors, right? For a loan officer, for a manager trying to recruit a loan officer through email, most times those emails get blocked by the company, right? So you're really looking at cell. For real estate agents, real estate companies are not blocking emails because that's how they do business, right? So sending emails is fairly easy out of our system. But what we're finding is that shift into text or SMS. That's the way people communicate today. You know, they are tired of the 18 spam calls they get every day, or more. And they're doing exactly what you're doing. Don't leave a voicemail. You know, if I know you, text me and I'll respond back. But no, we have that information in our all of our modules.
Yeah, and this is nothing new. We've killed multiple platforms in the past already before, right? If you think about door knocking, was until you wouldn't even open your door at one point because so many people would come to your door every day to sell you something. And then
Right.
after we killed door knocking, we killed the phones with cold calling, right? And then so now voicemail is a casualty of that, and text messages will soon be a casualty of that. And we're moving to DMs, and who knows what other communications methods we're going to continue to move to. But they're all a casualty of none of us want to be sold. And it reminds me a little bit of, you know, we've moved from, in this conversation that happened when I was a kid and now we're living it, is that we used to talk about push TV versus pull TV. And I don't watch any push TV. I watch zero network television where they're showing me what they want. I specifically go to the Netflixes of the world where I can go grab the thing that I want to go grab. I think we're in a pull information world, and so then the other thing is going to be in the right place where people can see you. And so in order to do that, you have to know where they are. And so I think that's the next evolution of data is going to be tracking and knowing where these people are. So I'd like to know that when I look at my realtor list and I say, well, they spent 136 minutes on Instagram, they spent 432 minutes on Facebook, and they spent 16 hours on YouTube. Okay, then I need to put my marketing on YouTube.
Right. There's a creep factor too that you got to consider.
Well, I'm
And
creepy. It's okay, right? I want to
I
make a
know,
sale.
hey, I think you and I've made a living being creepy, right? At least that's what my kids tell me. Um, but there's technology now, and we've looked at it, but because of the creep factor, we've kind of backed off. But where you can identify an individual, and you know, an example might be real estate agent walking down the street and they stop by a Starbucks, and you put an ad out there that says, "Hey, I'm Gino with PRMG, and how I step into Starbucks, coffee's on me." And they're saying, "How did you
Wow.
know I, I walked by Starbucks, right?" That kind of information is out there. So we always have to balance that creep factor. My thought of all of this data is um, is finding the vital few that works for you and then double down and do more of it. If you find a niche that works, then maybe step a little bit outside of the niche and go wider in that niche. Our data will tell you, and I'm doing a little bit of a shift here, top producers sell more of a variety of product than lower producers. So they're able to, they're going to sell the product that meets the needs of the customer based on asking the customer what they need versus telling the customer what they need. The second thing we find with top producers is that they do business with multiple entities. They've got a realtor profit center. They've got a past customer profit center. They've got a COI, CPA, attorney, contractor. Um, and they're very resourceful there. And the nice thing is that balances out these market swings. You don't have to, if the real estate agent's business is down, sales are down, you still have the financial planners, the CPAs, your past customers get referrals. And our data would suggest that the higher producers tend to have a more broad group of business sources. Um, and that's something else that I would look at is expanding your profit centers. And our data can help you.
I was just going to say, so you're telling me, so you're saying there's a chance. You're
Yeah.
saying that I could, because I think that's actually, I think all of us have a really good grasp on our real estate market. We know what they do, what they don't do, if they're good, if they're not good, if they're more listings, if they're more buyers. I mean, there are people in our market, we understand that. But
Right.
I mean, the CPA business has always been a very difficult business to crack, and it may not be the best type of business today, but I would argue that it is, because you could reach out to a CPA and say, hey, have you had your clients reach out to you and say, make sure you do my taxes in a way that I could still qualify for this mortgage because I'm going to go buy a house? I mean, it's a very typical conversation that a consumer would have with their CPA. And they say, well, yeah, of course, I get that every year. I said, well, have you done the math with them to show them that they could get a bank statement loan at 0.5% higher in interest rate? And that only equates to, I don't know, $6,000 more a year in interest rather than $40,000 more a year in taxes? No, I didn't know we could do that. No, because you've been programmed that rate's the only thing that matters. And everybody's been programmed that rate's the only thing that matters. What we're here to do is to prove that strategy is what matters. Would you like to sit down? We'll have an appointment. We'll go a little deeper into that. I'd love to meet you. And then now you can
Right.
set the appointment because you just dangled the hook with something that nobody's ever done before. But we never have, it's very hard to find them other than just going to Google and one at a time, kind of trying to sift through them and read their reviews. You'd be able to compile data like that for us?
So we don't have that kind of data at that level. I can point you or anyone else where to find it in a consolidated fashion, but that's an example though of a variety of business sources. We've
Yeah.
all been programmed that real estate agents are everything, and in my mind, they're most everything. But you've got to dig deeper. One other nugget here that I find interesting, and this is within our data, you can identify by real estate agent who they're working with. And there's an opinion that the real estate agents got their one loan officer and they refer everything to them. It's not true. They may have a primary, maybe even a secondary referral source, but in many cases, there's a lot of deals that they're referring out. And maybe, let's say, I've got my FHA lender here and I've got my jumbo lender here, but for non-owner or condo or whatever other niche, I need to find a different lender. And you see a lot of individual referrals out to a variety of loan officers. So to try to be their number one referral source may be tough, but at least you know what you're up against. And but try to be, one of three, and that
Yeah,
works.
I think what you stumbled on there is a really good point too that we've been talking about in our sales meetings. We have a weekly sales meeting. It's funny, we used to have a monthly sales meeting and it was mandatory, and everybody would hum and haw and kind of like, oh, they're so long and this and that. And then when things got hard, we moved to bi-monthly because we figured like we needed a little more cadence. And then everybody started to really engage better, and everybody's like, can we have these weekly? And so now we have them weekly. And what we discovered is exactly what you just went over right there, is that we thought that agents were cheating on us, and we get all emotional, right? Salespeople get super emotional. Oh, I saw they gave this deal to such and such, and I don't want to work with them anymore. Well, that's not the world we live in. The world we live in is, the reality is that they might not know that you do all the things you do. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're really good at manufactured homes. Well, do you market that, or are you embarrassed to say that you're the manufactured home king or queen? Like, Like you're not good at everything. I believe that in the future, there is going to be jack of all trades is not going to be the best loan officer. Specialist is, right? Because let's be honest, technology will solve for agency lending. It just will. I mean, you were already down that path to a certain level, and then what'll happen is you'll have one specialized loan officer or underwriter to review a lot of those things, but they'll be able to review 100 files for $500 a file. The days of $5,000 a loan are gone as it relates to agency lending. So it's all going to be strategy, specialty, and advisorship. And if we're going to do that, then we have to be in a different space. We have to be in a niche where the UWMs and Rockets call centers can't beat you. So I think there's a shift to that as the industry gets smaller. We're going to have more specialists. And if they want to be able to retain their compensation, they have to specialize in something.
Yeah, I agree. And, I hear, and I ask the question a lot, but I hear, well, retail, what's the future of retail? What's the future of loan officers? I've always loved my loan officer teams, and still to this day have many friends that were my loan officers and my managers that work for me. And I want them to be successful. I want them to enjoy financial independence. And so teaching your team, and you do a great job. That's why they want weekly meetings, because there's value there. But how can we help them do better? So it's even getting our managers as engaged on the data, not just at the loan officer level, but at every level. So there's alignment around the company to help the loan officers produce. I mean, they made a commitment to the company to join. Let's help them get better. And then it's up to them. It's up to the individual loan officer's effort and commitment and resourcefulness. Certainly the data is out there. Um, I was talking to somebody recently about their data, an executive, and this was a client I hadn't talked to, and they said, well, our data is good enough. Our data is good. Our data works, that's what the quote was. The data works. I said, what iPhone do you have right now? Well, I got the iPhone 16. I got the new 16. I go, well, iPhone 2 worked, right? So why do you have 16? So the point in that is there's a lot of good data out there. We feel that we have the best. We have the most accurate. We have the most broad data. But look around and see what resources are available to help you and your team grow. You want the entire team to be successful and create that financial independence, and they can do it in this business. The other thing I will tell you, and I don't know if we're running behind, but I just pulled
we're okay. I do want to go back to that in a minute, but go ahead and tell us your story. I'll go back
I just pulled a report that we have called Arrivals and Departures. And by the way, your company looked good in this report. Arrivals and departures. What are the loan officers that joined a company within a certain time frame or market? And what were the loan officers that left the company? And you'll see these companies that are throwing out these big offers are in many cases flat in terms of net growth, right? They're hiring people with big offers, and then they're seeing a year later, 18 months later, they leave. So that isn't the idea either. It's finding those aligned, committed individuals that you can grow with and stay with your company. Your PRMG, you guys have so many tools, such great leadership. Don't look around. You're going to have volume impact if you choose to consider your options out there.
And that's not just in lending. I'll tell you, I have one of my very, very, very close friends in life, and he's been successful at times, and he's been not successful at times, and he hasn't gotten to where he wants to get in life. And I had a candid conversation with him, and I said, it's because you change too much. I said, I've been doing the same damn thing for 20 something years. Got really good at it. Right? Because even in year 19, you learn something. In year 22, you learn something. In year 30, you learn something. Don's been doing this for 38 years. He still learns something every day. So the longer you stay doing something or being somewhere, the better you can play that instrument, right? And so I believe stability is key in success. So that's a wonderful report that you have. One thing that I wanted to go back to though was, is this an enterprise only solution, and those that are with us today that think they want to have access to this data need to talk to their leadership? Or is there something that they could look at on their own, maybe for small group or individual one-on-one data?
So we don't today do individual. We are an enterprise solution, but um, we've created some relationships that really were, it's called a land and expand strategy, right? That you start with a region and then use that as a seed region to hopefully see value and grow. And I can tell you there's a use case I won't share with you right now, but an individual that's his company has been acquired twice, and now he's with the top 5 retail lender, and his results in recruiting talent is about 8 times better than what the current organization system is.
Wow.
So, but he started as a land and expand.
Go for it.
He started as a land and expand, and now we're going to be moving into the entire situation, entire organization. But yeah, we're flexible. We want to do business. We want to be efficient as well. Um, and it's been it's a data is one of those things that you were talking earlier about. Data's not clean. We our development team, we correct 40,000 data errors every month. Um, Transactions closed, a deed of trust is recorded under PRMG or primary residential, or paramount whatever
Paramount. Yeah.
residential, whatever. Then there's so many mistakes that we have to correct them to make sure that we're pushing the accurate data up to our clients.
Well, I love that. And yeah, let's just begin to wrap up here. Greg, what's the best way to get a hold of you? It sounded like LinkedIn is a really good place for you.
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I don't do 18 LinkedIns a day like some other people do. I'm like you, Gino. I'm strategic there, but find me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on email. First name, you see right there, Greg. Last name, Sayegh at ingenious-data.com.
I know that Sonia's going to put that in the chat room right now, so that there it is. Boom. Look at that.
Yeah, I love you, man. Love you, Sonia. You know what? This is an amazing business. We're all blessed to be in this business. If I want to give you I'll just tell the group. When we started, when I started this call, I was asked, what music do you want to use to kick it off? And so I said Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Gino, I think, was selecting Celine Dion or whatever. I can't remember what it was.
Eminem. I like
Oh,
Eminem,
that's what it was.
which still ages me, but not that much.
No, for sure. But I love this business and I love the energy, and that will never change. So please reach out to me, and if there's value, let's do a deal.
All right. Well, everybody that's on the call with us today, I'm super excited that you were able to stay with us today. We kind of went into a bunch of stuff and strategies. Hopefully we scratched your brain a little, and you're going to go to bed tonight and wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning saying, I could do this and I could do that and I should do this. If we gave you tips, tricks, strategies, and motivation to be successful in 2024, 2025, we want to keep doing that every week with these more momentum webinars. So you can see the next 2 more momentum webinars are coming up. Don and I have made a little bit of a shift, and we're not hosting all of them right now. So you'll see over the next few weeks that this year we've wanted to have guest hosts that have relationships and close relationships with our guests, so that they could have more meaningful conversation and get to the real great deep thoughts rather than staying superficial. And so those are our 2 upcoming sessions that are coming up. Super excited about having Alec Hansen on, actually. So that's a big one. He transitioned to the CMO of Loan Depot, so I'm interested to see what they're seeing, because I know Loan Depot is a big publicly traded company that uses data to succeed for sure. And the other thing is, of course, most importantly, we want you all to be part of our Sales Mastery and Momentum Builder family. Want to make sure that you join us at the event, but not only at the event, we're actually putting together a journey that starts now. So when you buy your ticket, you will begin your journey to the Sales Mastery event. It is a community. Momentum Builder is a community, not an event. Sales Mastery is where we gather to see each other, hang out with our friends, network, listen to some of the best speakers. And in this case, we're going to be preparing for 2026. We did move it to Dallas, Texas. We wanted to be in the middle of the country. We wanted to make sure that we got a little bit more of an East Coast contingent, expanded the family, and super excited about having Sales Mastery in Dallas this year. Greg, I know I'll see you a bunch of times before that, but we'll definitely see you there. And any last words that you want to leave the group with?
Just thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be part of this. Again, you're leading the charge. I really think it's awesome through Sales Mastery that it's a community to help build everybody up. This is a highly competitive business. If you're not competitive, if you don't have that drive in your DNA, you know, you're probably not in this business. But to have events like this and this kind of communication to help lift everybody, it's the best for the client. Best for our economy. And you know, I know the love we have for our loan officers and managers is real. So you know, good job.
Awesome. Well,
Congrats.
thank you.